Today, Bungie released a TWID about a bunch of upcoming changes in the March update. It was a pretty thick TWID, and alongside various PvE sandbox changes, there was a large section dedicated to PvP changes. There are a lot of fundamental design changes here that will significantly impact the PvP landscape, and a number of changes that are somewhat controversial among the player base already, especially surrounding the Checkmate game mode. Let's take a close look at the announced changes and go over whether or not they are beneficial to the PvP side of the game. Hey everyone, I'm Rizeki, and welcome to my design analysis of the upcoming PvP changes in Destiny 2. Whether you've seen my videos before, or you're brand new, thanks for stopping in. We try to make weekly videos about the design behind Destiny 2 here, so if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, drop a like on the video and subscribe. That way you'll get new videos right into your YouTube feed. But with all that out of the way, let's get straight into talking about the PvP changes. Recently, Bungie has been testing a number of PvP changes to gauge player response before fully implementing them into the game. The most notable here is of course Checkmate Trials, and we'll be going into that a bit more soon. To kick off the PvP section of today's TWID, Bungie listed off their goals for the changes they want to make to the Crucible. Number 1. Help players more clearly understand the consequences of events that led to their death so that they can more easily learn how to improve. Number 2. Alter the weapon sandbox to account for increased average skill of our player base by reducing the amount of high reward, low risk options. And 3. Encourage primary weapon mastery to be an aspirational pursuit for players. I would say these are pretty fair goals. Overall, these 3 goals point to a single overall goal of rewarding skilled players while preventing players from taking too much advantage of easy to use, high rewarding weapons and builds. Both myself and Bungie have come to the conclusion that the PvP sandbox is way too forgiving, and because of this, the perceived skill of low skill players is much higher than it should be, and the opposite is true for high skilled players. Bungie's second point is a direct response to this. Players overall are better, mostly due to the ease of access to low risk, high reward weapons. Bungie wants to incentivize players to learn how to play better, rather than relying on a crutch to boost themselves higher than they belong. This is overall healthier for the game since the game will feel much more fair across the board. And as you improve your skill in the Crucible, it should be tangible and a worthwhile, satisfying goal to achieve. Learning how to improve is also important, and giving players more insight into the reasons that they may have lost a particular interaction will directly lead to this. Currently, players may feel frustrated or confused when losing due to reasons that appear to be out of their control, and that doesn't lead them to learning how to be better players. To know how to improve, you need to know what to improve, so making this more transparent would be a great change. So what are the actual issues in the Crucible from the perspective of Bungie? I'm going to go down the list from the TWID and address them individually. First, Bungie recognizes a possible reason for why ability-based builds have become so prevalent. Quote, when a defeated player has difficulty recognizing and reacting to how they were defeated, it creates a situation where it feels like there was nothing they could have done, making it hard to learn what to do better next time. It also places a strong focus on being the one to deliver as many of these types of unreadable kills as possible, while utilizing build crafting to avoid becoming the recipient. Then, sandbox elements that do not benefit either of those paths fall out of favor. Basically, what this is saying is ability builds, notably Strand Hunter with Threadlings, but previously Hoyle Titans, Omni Hunters, etc. tend to grow in popularity due to being some of the strongest but low effort builds in the game. If a lesser skilled to average skilled player is losing engagements to someone spamming Threadlings, they will more than likely think that they need to be the person to use these tools first in order to win. It's basically monkey see, monkey do, and hey, it makes sense. If you think you're losing because something appears to be so much better than what you're using, then you should just use the better thing instead. Why learn how to be better when you could just be better? Second, Bungie notes that the average skill of the player base has increased over the years. This is true, but not the actual reason why hitting optimal TTK is much more consistent now than it was previously. Destiny's PvP sandbox is very forgiving. Saltagrepo, everyone's favorite PvE player, made an excellent point on Twitter. While this is true, I firmly believe that 90% of the reason why many are hitting optimal TTK is not because skill increased, but because hitbox sizes and aim assist values are like 10 times what they were in D1. I started feeling this issue right away since D2 beta. No one was missing. It's much easier to hit optimal times because the game makes it so. If aim assist and bullet bending account for a large number of body shots or misses becoming crits, then of course players will easily hit the optimal TTK. Recent perks like target lock and others also help to increase the consistency of hitting these optimal values. If the game doesn't value the raw aim of the player and instead provides them with tools to boost their aim, it not only makes sense that the average player will be consistently hitting optimal TTK values as well. Bungie then points to the requirement of hitting about 67% of your shots as crits as to why SMGs and hand cannons feel so forgiving. This is not the cause of the problem, but actually a symptom. If the game was less forgiving in what counts as a crit, then this would not be an issue. I have definitely hit shots that were not deserved, and as a result, I hit optimal TTK and got kills that were, well, undeserved. Tightening hitboxes and forcing players to aim better is the only real solution to fixing the TTK over consistency issue, not changing or modifying the crit body ratios to get a kill. Finally, at high levels of play, things like high body shot damage, generous aim assist, primary weapon flinch, and low critical hit requirements all contribute to the feeling that putting in the time to improve your skill with primary weapons is generally not worth the effort. This is true. It's strange to me that Bungie acknowledges this, but somehow reached the conclusion that crit body ratio damage is the issue. Again, I agree with Saltagrepo's take on this point. Next, Bungie outlines a handful of key issues they are setting out to resolve. 2 are valid, in my opinion, but 1 is definitely more controversial and kind of baseless. First up, we have certain ability builds with either higher uptime or higher potency than we believe is healthy. True. Players have long complained about the overall effectiveness of ability-based builds, and this, of course, needs to be addressed. 2, we have made primary weapons highly lethal, fast killing, and in general also very forgiving. This is also valid. Primaries should feel lethal, but current primary TTKs honestly feel pretty good in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with them. Again, the issue is the forgiveness in the PvP sandbox and not how strong the weapons actually are. If you give players the tools to hit optimal TTKs consistently, they're just going to hit it. That's how it works. Now, this final point is questionable. We've provided a near constant availability of special ammo, which means there is always a surplus of one-shot kill weapons on the field. Now look, Destiny 2 has always had a high availability of special weapons in the Crucible, and it was never really an issue. Losing to a sniper rifle headshotting you is annoying for sure, but you can play around it. Shotguns feel fine for close range engagements. So what's the real issue here? It's not special weapons overall, but rather specific special weapons that are overbearing or overtuned. Cloud Strike was notorious for basically being able to kill an entire team with a single headshot. Conditional Finality could one-shot from a million miles away. Mating Ingredient felt similar to that. Special ammo availability is not the issue. You just need to keep overperforming weapons in check. Okay, now we can look at the proposed changes and analyze whether or not they make sense. The first major change is increasing players' health by 30. So now players will have a base of 216 effective health, counting shield, and a max of 230 based on resilience. The reasoning here makes, honestly, a ton of sense. Having a larger range of values to balance within makes it easier to make smaller adjustments to damage numbers and other factors. It gives more wiggle room to the balance team to make meaningful changes more easily, so long as they take the time to adjust numbers of weapon damage and ability damage. The TTKs and perceived damage should remain the same. What I mean by this is if some damage source did 50% of an enemy's health previously, it should still do 50% now, even if the actual damage numbers are vastly different. For players worried about this change or excited about this change, it's probably not going to make any difference in the actual gameplay, and you probably won't even notice it. Next, ability cooldowns were hit, as they should be. This, of course, should decrease the uptime on ability-based builds, and will shift focus more to gunplay rather than ability spam. The only issue I personally have here is the super cooldowns. On paper, it's a perfectly fine change, but in reality, the super economy in PvP is terrible. Super tiers result in some supers being seen in every game and in some rare cases multiple times in a game, while other supers will literally never see use at all. Currently, Well of Radiance and Bubbles have the quickest cooldowns, so they are over-dominant, while other abilities like Silk Strike are really never seen, even if Strand Hunter, for example, is extremely common. Increasing cooldowns across the board by 20% means that you will literally only see the quote-unquote low-tier supers like Well and Bubble, which may end up hurting the game more than it actually helps. Increasing ability damage makes sense, however, since the longer cooldown mixed with higher health means abilities would just feel bad to use. This change is more about adjusting the numbers to match damage pre-health increase, so abilities should feel like they are doing the same damage they did before the changes, you just get them less often. Not too much to say here, honestly. Primary weapons also received adjustments to crit damage versus body damage. Some of this is to account for the health increase, but also to shift the crit body TTK ratios slightly. Like we said earlier, the ratios are really not the issue, the aim forgiveness in the game is. This change is misguided and won't actually change the consistency of hitting optimal TTK unless other changes are also made to aim assist. On the other hand, bow damage reduction is a great change. Bows were way too strong for too long, and you know something? They had it coming. This following section is where I have the biggest issues. Bungie has decided that special ammo was too widely available. That's okay. Personally, I didn't think it was an issue, but that's neither here nor there. The issue is how they actually solved the problem. Crucible Labs has provided a testing ground for a mode called Checkmate. Checkmate is a PvP mode where you are not granted special ammo by default. You instead acquire special ammo by filling a meter. You gain points mostly for defeating enemies and capturing objectives. This is dangerous. On the surface, this should incentivize players to rely on primary ammo and gunplay. What it actually does is create a snowball effect for a team that gets ahead. Since you gain ammo for getting kills, players that are higher skilled are rewarded with ammo that lets them kill even easier. Not only is the losing team losing, but now they don't get easy access to a possible avenue for leveling the playing field. Special ammo weapons let players have a strong option in their back pocket to counter opponents. Without this option, or rather, by only giving this option to the winning team, it basically becomes much more difficult to maintain a fair and balanced match, causing a snowball effect for the team in the lead. For players that do not have the skill to access consistent special ammo, they will then resort to cheesier options, just like we've seen recently in Checkmate trials. Why were bows so oppressive? It's because they did the damage, essentially, of a sniper rifle without requiring the ammo for it. Devil's Ruin is a trace rifle without ammo. Fighting Lion is literally a special weapon that doesn't use special ammo. Bungie is, of course, nerfing these weapons in light of the changes, but will it actually be enough to curb their use in an ammo meter game mode? Probably not. I would argue that the utility of these weapons overshadows their damage. Fighting Lion is a great area denial tool, so even if the damage is lowered, are you still going to be able to walk through that corridor being spammed by grenades? I don't know. I guess it depends on how strong the nerfs actually end up being. Also, keeping track of which enemies have special ammo is now much more of an issue. Currently, I know for a fact that each player has 2 sniper shots, 2 shotgun shots, etc. In Checkmate, I couldn't keep track. Some players had nothing, some had 2, some stockpiled ammo and could shoot 6 sniper shots. Sure, the game notifies you when a player receives a drop, but it's hard to keep track of, and sometimes you just don't notice the notification at all, leading to you dying to a snipe you weren't expecting. Maybe that's just a me problem, but I wouldn't be surprised if other players had a similar experience. Finally, we have the special weapon damage buffs. I don't know why they decided to do this. Fusions already kind of felt cheesy, and shotguns did enough damage as is. Increasing fusion damage will make them way more consistent, and I don't think anyone enjoyed the main ingredient meta or any fusion meta to begin with. Mixed with the snowball effect of ammo transmat, now high-skilled fusion players will absolutely wreck lobbies as long as they get ahead early in the game. Shotguns will probably become better at longer ranges. Not by much, but a 20% increase in damage on something like conditional finality could result in even more unfair kills once those players acquire ammo. And that's all that changes. If it wasn't obvious, I am not a fan of most of these changes. Things like the health increase, bow nerfs, and general goals are all good. It helps maintain game balance and provides a clear path to improving the Crucible for all players. However, the proposed changes may negatively impact the game more than they help. Specifically, the introduction of ammo transmat into all PvP modes will be a major change to the fundamental balance of the game. It increases snowballing, which is never a good thing. It adds complexity to tracking enemy ammo, making the game feel more difficult to follow and play around. Online, I see that a lot of high-profile, skilled PvP players really enjoy Checkmate and ammo transmat as a whole. The average player, from what I've seen, has the opposite opinion. I have not had a single person in my chat during Checkmate trials say that they enjoyed it, And in fact, most people told me they decided not to play Trials simply because it was Checkmate that week. High skill players probably like Checkmate due to it being a novel experience, and they also probably feel like they are receiving special ammo at a similar rate to normal PvP. Since they were already good at picking up kills, getting rewarded for it with ammo makes it just as consistent. Checkmate feels fine to them because it doesn't change their experience much. But the average player will not have that same consistency, and they won't be able to play the same as they did before. When I was playing Checkmate Trials, I didn't even bother using my special because I felt like I just never had it. I couldn't take certain engagements because I didn't have the ammo, and that felt really, really bad. Again, I think nerfing the outliers would have been a much more beneficial change to PvP than nuking all special weapons across the board. Overall, PvP changes like these might seem okay, but I think they will honestly be very damaging to the fun of the Crucible for players who are average to below average skill, while making the game far too easy for those at high skill levels. Bungie, if you're listening, please reconsider some of these changes. There are other ways to balance special weapons and to fix the overconsistency in hitting optimal TTK values for primaries rather than what you have already proposed. But hey, maybe that's just my opinion. Do you agree with the changes outlined in the TWID? Are you a fan of Checkmate? Maybe you agree with me instead. Let me know down below in our Discord server, or discuss live with me during one of my live streams either here or on twitch.tv/Rozeki, most nights around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe to get more videos like this sent straight into your YouTube feed. But I think that's all I've got for now. As always, I've been Rozeki, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.